Are you ready to finally understand why your wife left you? When a woman files for divorce, and it's usually the woman who files for divorce, it often leaves men feeling really confused, really uncertain, and often, frankly, blindsided. What's going on? This uncertainty permeates every day of your life. It fills you with self doubt. It is a constant drain on your energy, and it just leaves you questioning, why did she leave? What did I do wrong? And most importantly, are all of those things that she said about me, is that really true? Is that the person I am? It saps your confidence. It drains you. I'm Rachel Sloan. I help men like you rebuild who they are after a divorce or a serious breakup. And rebuilding your sense of self, getting healthy, getting happy, it all starts with clarity. It all starts with a deep understanding of what is really going on. That's why today I'm going to share with you 3 facts you need to know to help you finally understand why she left. Through these 3 facts, we are going to explore the biology and social conditioning behind your wife's leaving, a fundamental misunderstanding that happens between men and women that could contribute, and then we're going to look at where the fault actually lies. Fact number 1, men and women have different biology and we receive different social conditioning. Yes, even in this modern day and age, this is very true. Men learn through subconscious imagery and social messaging that they should be strong, be a leader, be a provider, be stoic and tough, right? And they learn that emotions are weakness, and a man should not show weakness, right? To do that, to be emotional, is being a sissy, is being a wuss. If this feels old fashioned to you, bear with me. It is incredibly old fashioned, and it is also incredibly true for men and women in modern society. We're going to explore where all of this comes from. Let's look at what happens for women, though. Women are learning to make other people happy, often putting their needs ahead of their own, to prevent and avoid conflict. And to do these things, women have to be incredibly sensitive to other people's emotional states, right? If I'm going to make somebody happy, I need to know that they're not happy. If I'm going to avoid conflict, I need to see that potential conflict coming by reading people's emotions. So we can already see from this social conditioning that men and women are being set up very differently. What am I really talking about when I say social conditioning? First, I'm going to say what I'm not talking about. This is not a conspiracy by the patriarchy to keep women down. I'm not talking about like the patriarchy that teaches men like to go for what they want and be strong and ask for the raise, and like that keeps women being meek and people pleasing. That is not what we're talking about. That's not what's going on. This is not some big evil intentional conspiracy. What this is a deeply ingrained cultural story that has evolved over thousands of years. It's something that is present in our movies, our books, our cartoons, the media, the news, in our language even, but it is just a story. We're human. Humans use stories to make sense of the world. We are flooded with so much sensory information. Our brains use stories to help us make sense of all that information in the world. And we happen to have been using one version or another of this story about what it means to be a man versus what it means to be a woman to help us make sense of our world and make sense of our relationships for at least a few thousand years now. That's what I mean when I say cultural conditioning and cultural messaging. I am simply talking about a communal story that we have all told and retold and continue to tell through a lot of different media to help us make sense as a society of the world. And now this story is changing and really rapidly, right? We have the feminist movements, we have a lot of talk about what it even means to be a man or woman or what other genders may exist. This is becoming a very fluid subject. However, the subconscious imagery and the subconscious messaging is still incredibly pervasive and incredibly powerful. It affects all of our relationships. And just because as a society we are starting to change this narrative doesn't mean that it doesn't still affect us. And if you want to understand what went wrong in your marriage and why your wife left, you need to understand what this cultural conditioning, what this societal story has done, how it has set you up for fundamental misunderstandings. Which leads me to fact number 2 is that most of us don't understand this. Most men and women are completely unaware of this conditioning. That leads us to blame each other for deep misunderstandings that are caused by the way that we are conditioned differently. We internalize the subconscious messaging, the subconscious story. It shapes our habits of thinking and our habits of feeling. It sets men up to avoid emotions, right? To be relatively unemotional and relatively insensitive to emotions, to be strong, to be stoic, to be tough. It sets women up to rely on emotion, to rely on reading emotion and experiencing emotion and honestly manipulating emotion so that they can make other people happy, so that they can avoid conflict, so that they can prove themselves worthy of love by doing what a woman is supposed to do. But let's take a look at how this actually plays out in a modern relationship. I'm sure you can all relate to this image. The man is confused, he has no idea what's going on, and the woman is livid. Let's look at something that could be happening. Say, from the man's perspective, he was just sitting on the couch at home, long day at work, enjoying a game. Next thing you know, she comes in, she's yelling and screaming, then she's crying and in tears and leaves the room. And he's on the couch and he's like, I have no idea what just happened. I don't know why she's yelling. I don't know why she's crying. Why can't we just be calm adults and talk about this? Right? He has no idea why she's feeling the way she does or why she's mad at him. From the woman's perspective, for the last 2 weeks or maybe the last month, she feels like she has just been sacrificing, bending over backwards, going out of her way to take care of everything, to handle the house and do her job and maybe help with the kids. And like she's just sacrificing everything that she wants in order to try to make him happy, to make the relationship work, to make their life better, all at the expense of her own needs. She's been feeling angry, she's been feeling sad, she's been feeling resentful, and that's been building. And then she comes home and maybe the sink is full of dishes or something, and she asks him for help and he's absorbed in his game and doesn't answer. And the next thing you know, all of that emotion boils over. She finds herself yelling and screaming at him. And then she has the thought, oh my gosh, he just doesn't even care about me, right? If he loved me, he would notice, he would help, he would listen. That makes her sad. She bursts into tears and out she goes. She is conditioned to be so sensitive to emotions and to make everyone else happy to the point where she doesn't take care of herself and her own emotional needs. He is so conditioned to avoid and ignore emotions that he has absolutely no idea she's been frustrated and scared and resentful for the last 2 weeks. From where he's sitting, she is just freaking out, losing her shit out of the blue over absolutely nothing, right? That's how he feels. From her perspective, he has zero emotional intelligence, doesn't care at all, and maybe is being like maliciously uncaring, right? She is fuming, steaming mad. But from this lens of the cultural conditioning, when we understand that he has been so conditioned to avoid emotion and she has been so conditioned to be hypersensitive to it, is it really any surprise that this is happening? Like, in arguments, men tend to label women as being crazy and emotional, and women tend to label men as assholes or emotionally unavailable or even calling them narcissists. Is this really surprising when you consider the conditioning that is underlying all of this? There's something, fact 3 is really important for you to understand. None of this is your fault, and it's not her fault either. You're not a narcissist and you're not an asshole. And she's not crazy or overly emotional. She has internalized the belief that love means you have to make the other person happy, right? You have to put them and their happiness above your own. And that means that she has to be incredibly sensitive to other people's emotions so that she can try to control those emotions, i.e., make them happy, right? This is incredibly frustrating for her because it is nearly impossible to make another person feel anything. She believes that in order to be a good person, to be worthy of love, to show love, she must literally do the impossible. She must make another human being happy. This requires an immense amount of effort on her part, and most of the time she will fail. This is why she is so stressed, so exhausted, and so frustrated. At the same time, you, the man in this relationship, have internalized the belief that showing or experiencing emotion is a weakness. And so you do your best to avoid emotions, to ignore emotions, to shut them down where they start. But here's the thing that most people don't understand. She can't make you happy, and you can't make her happy. The truth is that we all have to attend to our own emotional well-being because we are the only ones who can. But we don't do that. We can't because we've internalized all of this messaging, right? Your wife fails to make herself happy because she's putting all of her energy into trying to make other people happy. And you fail to make yourself happy because doing that would require you to go through and actually feel emotions, right? You can't get to happiness if you haven't experienced and processed your anger, your grief, your anxiety, your fear, your regret, right? Getting to happiness, real happiness, requires experiencing all of these emotions. You are both failing to achieve your own happiness, to care for your own emotional well-being because of this internalized subconscious messaging. For her, it has driven her towards people-pleasing activities, and for you, it has driven you to avoid emotion. It's not either of your fault that this is happening, but it does make you completely miss each other. It sets up massive miscommunication and misunderstanding. Beginning to understand these things is the tip of the iceberg when you are going through a divorce. This is the beginning moment of clarity. From here, you can go on to learn how to really process intense emotions, move through them and let them go. Find real closure, deeply understand what went wrong in this relationship, and create a clear roadmap for the future. How can you create more successful relationships that aren't sabotaged by this subconscious messaging? How can you regain your confidence and go forward into the future? If that is where you want to go and that's what you want to explore, I'd like to invite you to book a free strategy session with me. We'll talk about what that path looks like, what steps you need to take to get there, and how to customize that pathway to suit your individual experience and your individual goals. So go ahead, there's a link in the video description to book that call with me. And I would invite anyone who is going through a divorce or has recently gone through a divorce or a serious breakup, go ahead, book a call. Let's talk about it and help you find the pathway back to rebuilding who you are and moving on with confidence. Hope this video was helpful. Please go ahead and subscribe if you liked it. I'll be putting out a lot more content like this. And leave me a note in the comments if you want to share how this content was relevant to your experience. All right, I will see you guys very shortly.